West Lombard, an apartment community in St. John's, has permanently solved the problem of those yearly PGE rate hikes. They are 100% solar powered, and electricity is included with every lease. They're also conveniently located directly across from New Seasons Market, close to all the awesome local small businesses in downtown St. John's, as well as the University of Portland and the Adidas North American headquarters. And they're giving away $25 Visa gift cards if you schedule a tour today. Visit westlombard.com for more information. That's westlombard.com.
Diamore Law Group believes personal injury is about public safety, not just a settlement check. Led by veteran trial attorney Tom Diamore, with over 30 years of experience holding negligent drivers, corporations, and unsafe institutions accountable across Oregon. And clients pay nothing unless they win. If you or someone you love has been seriously injured, call 503-222-6333 or visit diamorelaw.com to schedule a free consultation.
For more than a decade, Oregon pursued one of the most ambitious education goals in the country. What if every student who entered kindergarten in 2012 graduated by 2025? And to see how that promise played out, OPB followed 25 students for 13 years, from their first days of school to the brink of adulthood. So today on CityCast Portland, OPB's Rob Manning and Elizabeth Miller join me to recap the Class of 2025 project and break down what worked, what fell apart, and what Oregon schools are still struggling to fix. It's Monday, January 12th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Rob, Elizabeth. It's so odd calling you Elizabeth.
You can just call me Liz.
It's so, because I mean, just, to be very transparent, I've known Liz for many years now, and I don't think I've ever called you Elizabeth in my life. But I understand that's your professional name, and I want to respect it. Elizabeth Miller. But Liz, I remember when you got hired to join this team, and I remember Rob was always working on this project, and I have to tell you that this was the first time, like, as we were preparing, that I was like, oh, that's what this project is about, and I felt so dumb.
Yeah, I feel like people finally figured out what it was about, like, last fall.
I felt so bad. I was like, what's wrong with me? I thought, because I remember us talking, I'm like, yeah, 25 kids. I think what it is that I didn't understand like the actual plan. So let's set this up. You started this project 13 years ago, and it started because Oregon had a plan that by 2025, that kindergarten class was going to reach 100% graduation. We're talking high school.
Yeah.
And it was Governor Kitzhaber at that time, which for a lot of people who listen to our show, they're brand new Oregonians. So that's going to be a whole other conversation as well as to why, what happened there. But when Governor Kitzhaber was like, hey, this is the goal, how did you react? Because you were the educator reporter. Were you just like, oh, that's a wonderfully attainable goal? Or were you like, we got to follow this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever thought of it as being at all realistic, but it prompted sort of like, the idealistic person in me was like, okay, that's not realistic, but why not? Mm-hmm. It's the goal of every kid and the goal of every teacher and the goal of every parent for young people to graduate, whether it's a rite of passage or whether it's a sort of ticket to your, to your future. It's like, it's kind of a baseline requirement. And it should be the expectation of our public education system that everybody's going to graduate. And so the fact that it was laughably impossible that we get to 100% was sort of like, well, let me kind of challenge that. Like, why is it so absurd? And here's a perfect opportunity to kind of explore what it is that makes it so impossible. And I think we quickly learned that it's not the kids who don't want to graduate or the kids who don't have the capacity to learn what's necessary. It's, all the complications of life. It's the way the system is set up that it doesn't really serve every individual kid. So for me, it was like, this is a way to talk about school and its inadequacies in a way that is relevant because we've just set this goal, and in a way that really drills down to the individual experience of students who are the consumers and should be the beneficiaries of a system if it's working right.
Right. Because that was back in 2012. And at that point, the graduation rate was about 69%.
Yeah.
What was the actual plan? Like, did Kitzhaber have something along with his educational policymaker? Like, did they present something, or was it just this goal?
Yeah, so there was a goal. And part of it is the goal was not just 100% graduation. It was also these higher education attainment goals of 4-year completion and 2-year completion.
Or are you talking about the 40-40-20 education plan?
Yeah, 40-40-20.
So
exactly.
that was the 40% with a bachelor's or higher, 40% with an associate's, and 20% with at least a high school diploma.
Yeah, that was really the goal.
Oh,
that was
see.
the goal. Yeah, and then the where you get to 100% graduation is you just add up 40, 40, and 20, and you get to 100, and you're like, well, every one of these young people who's supposed to be at one of these 3 levels, they're at least going to have to graduate from high school. And Kitzhaber was out there, on the stump saying like, yeah, it's 100% graduation. He was not pretending that was not his goal. But he did have some plans to go along with that. And one of them was he created the Oregon Education Investment Board. He hired a chief education officer who was supposed to kind of supervise what Kitzhaber called the entire education enterprise. So like everything from birth to graduation from college. And a big part of the conversation was we need to really wrap around and connect not just all the sectors of education, but also business and, the nonprofit sector. Like we need to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page because this is a big state goal. But all of that stuff started falling apart. I mean, we can talk about, Governor Kitzhaber left office in scandal.
Yeah, in 2015, just like 3 years after this, hey, we're going to do this, he was forced out of office. And then we got Governor Kate Brown. Didn't even vote her in. We're just like, it's you, buddy. Till
Secretary of State, that's the succession plan.
Yeah. So how was that plan affected then?
Well, everything started to fall apart.
Okay.
People were kind of like not invested in the Oregon Education Investment Board. It felt like another layer of bureaucracy. The chief education officer was Rudy Crew. He didn't last very long. He'd been the head of New York City schools. He came in as a very, really a celebrity hire, and he left. The woman who moved in after him, Nancy Golden, was an experienced superintendent, but just wasn't someone who rallied the support that was probably necessary to maintain this position. And so that position kind of faded away. Amid this, Kitzhaber also basically orchestrated the ending of a separately elected superintendent of public education. Like we used to elect that as someone separate. Susan Castillo was the last person in that office years ago. And it became that the governor was the superintendent of schools. And so Kitzhaber had kind of consolidated all of this power, created these new systems. And then when he was, forced out, there was not a political constituency that really stood behind those new institutions and systems. And so it all went back to, well, if we're going to still meet this goal, there's no new system to kind of make it more attainable. So, yeah, there was a plan. There were some systems, but they kind of fell apart after Kitzhaber left. So by, the late 2010s, really none of that was there anymore.
Rob, as a reporter, this was your main story. Were you at all when he was forced out? Were you like, no, my story? Because I know I would have been.
I was just sort of like, no one, they didn't get rid of the goal. That's the thing is like, I think politicians were not going to say like, oh, we're giving up on getting every kid to graduate from high school.
But we're not going to give it any resources or thought. So
yeah, we're going to sort of talk about other things, which I think is what has been happening really ever since.
Yeah. And that's actually when Elizabeth joined. I can't do it. I'm sorry, Liz.
That's okay.
I was like, Elizabeth. And
it's a lot of syllables too.
Yeah. 2019, 6 years in this project. Rob hands the baton to you. So what did the public schools in Oregon look like at that moment, like right before the pandemic hit?
Yeah, in 2019. So I got here in February 2019, and I I always said, like, Rob had the class of 2025 kids when they were these cute little elementary school kids. And then I got the like moody teenagers that were like, okay, who's this?
Yeah. Where's Rob?
Yeah. Literally. Where's Rob? I'm showing up at lunchtime. They're in 7th grade. They're like, who are you? But I think 2019, it was kind of this, it wasn't like, perfect, but things were getting better. Things were improving. Especially when we talk about like the big high level, like statistic that this is all about, graduation rates, they were increasing. Oregon was in a good place in that way. And I think, with things like the Student Success Act, which is was this big influx of money that was going to go to schools. And that was one of the first stories that I got to cover when I first got here. And the class of 2025 students, they were in 7th grade, and middle school is not easy, but you're at that point where you're starting to get the hang of things. You're starting to figure out like, oh, what I'm interested in, or, oh, I can do choir, or I like playing this sport, or I love math. And so it was kind of an exciting time, would you say? Would you say that, Rob?
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think there was, especially now you look back at the graduation data, like, we'd made a lot of progress from 2013 to 2019. It was like, it had gone up like 10 or 12 percentage points. It's like, hey, we're on our way here.
So it was like almost near like 80?
Yeah, it was basically at 80%. And I think and we see this a little bit in the documentary where we go back to some of what the kids were saying in 6th and 7th grade, and they're excited to be at a different school, it's like middle school, but also 7th grade is a little bit like you're just in the middle, you're not really ready for high school yet. You've kind of figured out middle school.
You're learning how to get mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's the talk of drama. Yeah, definitely.
So much drama. Wow.
Did some of that drama make it to the documentary, you guys? Like, are we going to get a lot of he said, she said? Are there subplots? Are there subplots where I'm just like, did he end up with her though? No.
That's in the behind the scenes.
Okay, gotcha.
When I fill Rob in on all the tea in between the video camera being on.
What were the students themselves though saying about school at that time? Like, was it an enjoyable experience for them? Were they looking forward to graduation, that kind of thing? Because being chosen to be one of the 25, why you were chosen. Is like all eyes on you. Are you going to graduate?
Yeah. So every year of school, we do these exit interviews with the students. And 6th grade was our last exit interview for a couple of years because of COVID. And we can talk about that later. But that last year, 6th grade, I think we saw, the thing about these 25 kids is like they all started at the same school, but their lives are so different. And they obviously didn't all end up finishing at the same school. So some didn't end up finishing high school at all. And so I think, there were some that were like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm finding friends, blah, blah, blah. And then others that were just like, I can't wait to graduate already. I'm bored already. You could tell, and that's something that I think is really interesting as an education reporter is like seeing how the relationship and the feelings about school start to change because elementary school, some of the students in the project still were talking about how much they loved their elementary school in high school. It was so special for them. They loved it. But then you get to middle school and things get more complicated and life gets more complicated.
So that's where people start getting failed is just extrapolating. I'm like, so middle school, that's where we're losing them. Though, sorry to interrupt, but when you said that, I was like, yeah, I still think so fondly to elementary school. I still remember my teachers' names. I can't remember any of my middle school teachers' names. That's really interesting. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about what happened there. Currently at OMSI, you can dive back in time to explore what lurked beneath the surface in Monsters of the Abyss, aquatic predators past and present. This immersive exhibit takes guests on a journey through millions of years, revealing the rise and fall of Earth's most famous and fearsome aquatic predators. It even features a full-scale replica of a Spinosaurus, an aquatic dinosaur even larger than a T-Rex. There's also real fossils you could touch, as well as live animal encounters connected to these creatures of the past, led by expert educators who are ready to answer any questions you might have about life under the sea. This is a perfect outing for families and explorers of all ages. Tickets are on sale now at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. Just a quick traveling hack for all the new Oregonians. If you're thinking about getting away somewhere in the state next year, January is actually when locals plan ahead. This is when the best places for the rest of the year start filling up, especially for the summer. Cascadia Getaways is Oregon-owned and operated, run by locals who genuinely love showing people their favorite corners of the state. They have homes on the coast, around Mount Hood in Central Oregon, and they just launched in Oregon wine country, which is already booking fast. And when you book directly with Cascadia Getaways, you're skipping the big third-party booking fees, which can be as high as 15 to 20%. You can go take a look at their properties at cascadiagetaways.com to see what's available and to learn more. That's cascadiagetaways.com. The Getaways is plural. Book direct, book local, explore Oregon. A new year is the perfect time for a fresh start. If you've been wanting to improve your team's work dynamics and communication, and no one has taken you up on a top golf outing, check out Skill Charter. They're a locally owned leadership development company that's already helped colleagues at Portland State, Wild Cannabis, and Nonstop Health reconnect, reset, and actually work better together. Skill Charter's workshops are fun, affordable, and designed to create real lasting change long after everyone goes back to the office. They help growing organizations build strong teams by providing the space to finally have the kinds of conversations you never have time for. They bring the structure, facilitation, clarity, practical tools, and plenty of humor. You just have to bring your people. To learn more, explore case studies, or connect with co-founders Kate and Corin, go to skillcharter.com. That's skillcharter.com. All right, Liz. So once COVID hit, the impact on schools was especially severe. So many kids fell behind. Like Kitzhaber, resigned. And maybe at one point Rob was like, I don't know about this. Was this your moment, Liz, of being like, my story?
Yes, kind of. I mean, Rob, do you remember we had this huge plan for this video and this podcast season and what's in middle schoolers' backpacks. And I had all of these ideas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was excited. And then COVID. And it wasn't hard because I didn't want to do it, but it was hard to do the project because I had never met these kids' parents yet. I had met a couple, but I was at school talking to the kids themselves. And then it went from, they're all in one place. I just go hang out at lunch. I go to math, whatever, to, snap, I need to reach their parents who have never met me and don't know me and have life going on. It was COVID. So they weren't thinking about returning my phone calls or my texts. They were like, who is this? Kind of like the kids were when I met them in sixth grade.
Right.
So Rob was really helpful with that because they know him, but it just became hard to do the project for a really, really long time.
One decision that we made to make the project a little bit more manageable was, so there was 25 kids. At this point in the project, about 2/3 of them were still at the same middle school, and 1/3 of them, their families had moved somewhere else, but they stayed in the project. So those families that had moved somewhere else, I kind of stayed in touch with, because it just seemed like a bridge too far to ask Liz to not only are you having to manage 25 families who have in some cases moved somewhere else and you've never
outside
met
of
any
Oregon
of them.
Or just
no, they're
within?
all pretty much within Oregon.
Okay,
I mean, there's one family that moved to Washington. They were all over. There's a family, moved to Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
There's a family on the Oregon coast, family in Salem, Malala. Yeah, there's a number of them all around. But it was hard to kind of keep in touch with them through COVID and to convince them to actually talk to us, because they had so much going on. I think that there was some really great reporting that Liz wound up being able to do. And I think that both of us were able to do. because we'd built those relationships with the kids and to some extent with the parents, if they were going to talk to anybody about what hell COVID was, being a family locked down and trying to do school over a laptop, like they were going to talk to us.
How were they faring then? Like, how were they doing?
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, it was bad. It was, I mean, part of it is like, these are all, I mean, predominantly low income families. So like you hear about like middle class families or upper income families during COVID who created these pods and they hired a teacher and like, you know, they did stuff. And like these families weren't doing that. And they were working full time. You know, some of them are single parents, you know, or 2-income households, but nobody's at home during the school day. And like tech problems were happening all the time.
Yeah.
Kids were watching their younger siblings while they were also trying to do school. It was really, really hard. And I mean, there were definitely lots of kids who were essentially like, I kind of gave up on school for a good year and a half. Yeah. And plus, I mean, we can talk about it, but like Oregon, it's been well documented. Oregon stayed in distance learning longer than most other states.
Yeah.
So like these disadvantages that kids had, these problems that they had, which disproportionately happened to lower income families, happened even worse in Oregon than in a lot of other states.
Right. I mean, we're still feeling the repercussion of the pandemic in our educational system from the reporting that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So you wrap this project, you know, it's 2025, it's done. You kind of said like some of them didn't graduate, but what was the graduation rate among the 25 that you followed?
It was 80%.
It actually mirrored, because where we are now is at 82% graduation rate, right? From the 69 when the project started. So it actually did mirror that. That's crazy.
Yeah, which I thought was super interesting. One thing I think Rob said this, just that this project shows that life gets in the way of graduating for some kids. And there's a lot that doesn't work for them when it comes to school. And school isn't a place that they necessarily want to be all the time. And the pandemic made all of that worse. Right. I definitely think, I mean, I think we say this in the doc, like it probably would have been better if we didn't have the pandemic. Yeah. You know, the graduation rate would have been higher. Maybe more kids would have graduated.
What, I mean, aside from the pandemic, was there a reason that some of these kids, like that you saw over and over again, where you're just like, oh, this is a reason why people chose not to graduate?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different reasons. I mean, one of the kids, the one who's featured most prominently in the documentary, is a kid named Dale, who his family had domestic violence problems when he was little. He had to get taken out of his house. He wound up being adopted by his grandmother, basically lives on the Oregon coast now. And COVID was kind of the last straw for him. School was hard. He'd had to change schools, and it was just sort of like never really got the relationship, the connection that was necessary. And he found other things. Like he was a kid who liked working with his hands. He liked being outdoors. He liked doing a lot of things that, frankly, a lot of young men like doing. You know, he likes fishing. He likes hunting. He likes spending time with his friends. And he was able to find work without a high school diploma. And so he's 18, and I think he's doing fine, you know, but he doesn't have a high school diploma. Yeah,
I mean, Lena is another student that we covered we talked about her story in an episode of OPV's podcast, The Evergreen.
Mm-hmm. How dare you bring up another podcast on my podcast?
I know. It feels weird.
I'm totally joking. It's fine.
It's fine. Cut it out, John. You just bleep it. But Lena, she has this, really tough story of at the beginning of high school, right before freshman year, she lost her father. And she started out she was like, I want to graduate because of him. Like, this is what he wants, and I want to do this for him. And then it just got hard over the years for her. And she, was helping out a lot with her little sister at home. And she ended up going to online school, which, wasn't necessarily like super helpful to her and what she needed. And, similar to that, Jonathan is another student who also chose online after, a couple years in person. But similar to Dale, too, he got really into the workforce and found jobs that he loved and didn't need a high school diploma for. And so I think you saw in several ways, we kind of saw the same thing. school wasn't engaging for these kids for whatever reason. It wasn't the place for them. And they didn't see the point to, make it clear. And then we have another student who had some mental health challenges, which I think is something that a lot of students also experience.
I think some of it is like school is hard. And I think for some kids, depending on their life circumstance, it's especially hard. And you need to have those supportive people at the school who are like going above and beyond to like grab those kids by the shoulders and make sure that they're coming to school or doing what they can to connect them to something that is really engaging and fun for them.
Right.
And it's a higher barrier, if you've been through traumatic situations or if you have particularly difficult circumstances, it's that much harder. And the system is kind of built, it's a system, it's a model that works.
So one size fits all.
Yeah. And as much as there's flexibility here and there, and like there are some extraordinary educators and people that help it stretch a little bit farther, for a lot of kids, it just doesn't stretch far enough.
Yeah.
It's like there's not enough there to help them get over the barriers that they have to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think hitting nearly an 82% graduation rate from 69, taking into consideration that we had a pandemic, that we had the main leader of this plan forced out. I mean, those are two big wrenches. 82% is pretty good, but ultimately, do you think that this project, do you think that like it was ever going to hit its goal,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was ever going to make it all the way. And I think that there are folks in the documentary and people looking at it like Ben Cannon, who's still in education now, who was one of Kitzhaber's education advisors when all of this started, who is like, it was always a North Star. It was always aspirational. As far as it being maybe part of the reason, part of the impetus for the improvements that were made, then it was a success in that way. I mean, I think the fact that it wasn't supported is a failure.
Right.
And I think that now the politics are such that they're recasting goals and trying to figure out where to go next. Seems like they should have been doing that before now. Like there should have been, that goals do work, they help.
Yeah.
And if this was the wrong goal, they shouldn't have just kind of stopped talking about it. They should have actually confronted it and come up with something better.
Like a recalibration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like that they set the goal. I think I'm proud of the work that we did kind of following it.
Mm-hmm.
But Oregon education continues to be in a compromised, difficult position. Things are still not working.
Yeah.
And I know higher ed is at a point of serious reckoning as well. I think there's a lot of like trying to figure out how to get better at this. I mean, there's a greater focus on accountability now, which I think is also something that we talk about a little bit in the documentary. And Liz, I know that's something that you're going to be looking at going forward as well.
Do you think that we are on track for a 100% high school graduation rate anytime soon with how things are unfolding?
I mean, no.
I don't know what I was expecting, Rob.
Yeah.
I was not expecting a yes, but I guess I was expecting more of just like, no, but do you think it would drop?
No, I mean, the thing that Liz and I were talking about this earlier today, like if you look at the trajectory we were on before the pandemic, we were improving the graduation rate on average 2% a year.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had kept that up, if there hadn't been a pandemic, if we'd been able to actually keep that momentum, we'd be hitting 90% or close.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty, like if you look nationally, like 90% is a pretty good graduation rate. It would put you in the top third or smaller of states in the country. And then it's sort of like you start talking about, the students who are not graduating, who are in that 10% that aren't graduating. Often they're in really challenging situations. Mm-hmm. But I think that there is more to do to help kids that it really shouldn't be that hard to help them graduate. Those kids should be graduating. I think that the state could do a better job of that. I think there's a point where it's like, okay, this last 5 or 6% is just going to be really hard because they have special needs. They have really difficult circumstances at home. There's a reason why nobody is at 100%.
Right. Well, you touched on it, but, statewide leaders are still struggling to raise educational outcomes in Oregon. What are some of the big things going on this year that you guys are looking into?
I mean, I'm definitely, as Rob said, I'm really interested to see how this accountability thing shakes out.
Because, what is that? Like, what does that mean?
Good question.
I'm like,
good question, Claudia.
Accountability is great. I'm glad that's happening.
It is kind of the buzzword. And before, I did want to say, like, I am also pro goal. I think goals are important. But it does feel like we're doing things that we should have been doing like 10 years ago. And we're kind of having the same conversation. And I think the thing that I'm interested in that kind of ties back to the 2025 project and Kids Hoppers goal and everything is like, let's make sure that whatever we do next is tied to, a system rather than a person. And so what's happening right now is this big accountability bill passed in the legislature last year. And now it's kind of falling into place where basically the state and districts are going to be keeping track of these specific metrics. And these are things like high school graduation rate, third grade reading, things that we've been kind of keeping track of, but they're actually going to be setting more goals about here's where we want these districts to reach by X amount. It's actually going to be a little more measured and a little more specific to different outcomes, but also to specific districts. And then school districts themselves are going to get to set these other like extra metrics that they want to follow. Like maybe they're really interested in, how many kids are passing science tests in their district. And so they get to use that as a metric. And then according to this bill, if districts do not reach those goals in, 2-3 years, they're going to get some calls from ODE, the Oregon Department of Education, of,
And then what happens?
We'll see.
I was just going to say, worst case scenario is that they lose control of some of their funding.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And the state is going to say, you have to spend money on a better reading program, or you need to you have too much administrative bloat. You're going to have to get rid of some people and hire more teachers. And definitely that is not something that local school districts want. There's a lot of tension in Oregon between state control and local control. And there are states that have made progress quickly, and often it is done through a strong central state authority of some kind. And there's going to be some tension in the months to come over how much can local school districts kind of call their own shots, and how much is the state going to kind of be the heavy and make them do things that maybe they don't want to do.
Which is not a place they've been in before, right, Rob?
Right.
Rob's been doing this way longer than I have, but it seems new to me.
Yeah.
Before it was just whatever the local districts decided happened. Oh, interesting. So that's what's happening.
Yeah. It would be a big cultural shift. Because it honestly, so much of what the state has done in the past is all carrot and no stick. It's a lot of we've got this grant money to do the right thing. So here, take some money and go and do things better. But then there's very little accountability or consequence if they're not showing outcomes with the money that they got. And so here's, the state trying to be a little bit tougher. And it'll be interesting to watch to see if they actually stick with that, or if when they start getting pushback from local school districts, are they going to blink?
Well, I guess that's what we'll check out for, was it 2050? We'll all meet back again at 2050. Does that work for you?
I'll be here.
Will you look at your calendars now? Make sure that you're not on another podcast, Liz? Okay. Well, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out. And I want to say, again, Rob, you've done so much work on this. Congratulations. I know, Liz, you too, but Rob,
oh, no,
you know what I mean? When literally everyone in the newsroom was like, what is Rob doing? As I just proved today.
And he was doing it, and he kept doing it.
Yeah.
And now we're here. Again, Rob has been doing this for 13 years. That is unheard of in journalism. Even in films, when Richard Linklater made Boyhood, everyone was like, this guy's crazy. Rob is also crazy. But he did it.
Rob, the Richard Linklater of local journalism. Right. That's how we'll end this interview.
Oh, my God. No, Liz has done amazing. Thank you so much for taking it over, this crazy project that you stepped into.
Yeah, Elizabeth Miller's the best.
It does sound like a different person when you say it.
Thanks again, guys. If you're curious about this documentary, OPB is hosting a screening of Class of 2025 Growing Up in Oregon Schools tonight at the Red on Salmon Street. Registration is free, but tickets are required. You can sign up at opb.org/growingup. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or rate and leave us a good review. It really helps us out. And don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm for all the details. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.